What's going on? I'm just saying, family. I'm back. Jeremiah is back. How y'all doing? I know it's been a while since last school year, since last basketball season or whatever. But we're back. First episode back. As you can see, Gabe is not here with me, but we do have a new face, one of my good homies. So I'm gonna let him do all the talking, let him introduce himself.
What's up, guys? I'm William Pattison, and really happy to come on the podcast. Really happy to join the crew. Jeremiah and I have known each other for the last, I'd say, year or so. We
Yeah.
had some classes together at UTK, and now with basketball season rolling around, we've got a lot to talk about with this Tennessee team. High expectations once again, and Rick Barnes' 11th season, and I talk about this team every day on Fox Sports Knoxville on the radio from 1 to 3. So I feel like I fit the bill for this gig. I hope I can fill Gabe's shoes, but I'm excited for the opportunity to come on here and talk some ball.
Appreciate you, Will. Yeah, so Gabe, he graduated and he has his new gig with TNT. But I'll definitely have my guy pop in, you know what I'm saying? Come show some love to them. I'm just saying, family, for anyone new to the pod, we work for Field of 68. And we cover all things college hoops, whether it's game recaps, season predictions, player spotlights, other things to watch. But let's get right into it, man. Did you watch the game the other day, Will?
Yeah, I did. Start of the season always really fun. As you know, this is a another group that has a lot of expectations, especially with Nate Ament, who's going to be one of the top picks in the NBA draft this upcoming season. You bring in a guy in Jacoby Gillespie over from Maryland who really excelled last year with the Terrapins. And this is going to be a fun group. And also, you get a little bit healthier. Guys like JP Estrella back this season after missing much of last year. You have some former, or I guess maybe not former players, but some guys that were on last year's roster, and Felix Akpara, Bishop Boswell. So it's kind of a mix of some new guys, some freshman phenoms, some players with plenty of experience in college basketball. It really is a roster that we see across the country in 2025 now. So yeah, watch the game, and I don't want to overreact to just one game,
Yeah.
right? I feel like a lot of people do that, but we're just one game into the season, and this is a new group. There's a lot of things to fix. We'll talk about it here in a little bit, but I'm just excited for hoops to be back, man. I love some college basketball.
Man, me too. I feel like if you're as a sports fan, I feel like the best thing to watch is college basketball because they're trying to go get these contracts. They're trying to go, make it out the mud, make it to the league. I think the season really started for me, obviously, with the crazy exhibition. I don't even know how they got scheduled, but the
Yeah.
exhibition in Knoxville versus Duke or whatever. I think we got a good glimpse of what the team would be, but I definitely think Rick Barnes was experimenting a little bit, as he does mostly in these non-conference games. But on was that Monday? Was that a Monday game? When
Yeah.
yeah, Tennessee defeated Mercer by a score of 76 to 61. On paper, I mean, that's an expected win. It sounds pretty good. But we definitely, like you said, there are some things that need to be figured out. I think we saw as Rick Barnes teams have been in the past couple of years, starting off slow and playing down the competition. I don't know what those first 10 minutes of the first half looks like in those in these non-conference games against non-ranked teams, but Tennessee has always had that problem. I don't really understand why. What do you think about it?
Yeah, you go back to that exhibition game against Duke. Obviously, that was a big time matchup. Really cool that you get the opportunity to do that,
Yeah.
by the way. And Rick Barnes said leading up to that matchup that he would love to play like 4 or 5 of those before the season gets started, just so you have the opportunity to kind of knock off some of the rust, a lot of that rust that you saw in that Mercer game. But again, against Indiana last year in that exhibition, you ended up losing that game. Now, obviously, Barnes kind of approached that one a little bit differently, played some guys that didn't really have big time minutes throughout the season last year. I think he was just tinkering. In the Duke game, I thought he played his lineup like he would against a Mercer or against a Houston here in a couple of weeks when you go play in Las Vegas. But I thought in the Mercer game, it was very similar to what we saw last year against Gardner Webb. There's some stuff you really like, but there's some stuff you got to clean up on. And
Yeah.
that's just early season basketball, whether that's the NBA or the college level. When you have a new group and a ton of new characters, there are going to be some growing pains, and there are going to be some moments like the first 10 minutes in Monday's matchup against the Bears. And you just have to live with it, but you can't overreact to it. Right. And it could end up being an issue down the road, but I have enough track record of Rick Barnes to say
Yeah.
I'm not going to overreact to just, one opening game against a Mercer team. Obviously is inferior, but again, just a new roster. You've got to get things going, and turnovers were a big problem.
For
And
sure.
that's a characteristic of knocking off the rust. A lot of missed shots as well, but I thought there were some positives too, and we'll discuss those here in a minute. But for you, overall, kind of your big takeaway from this one.
Um, that's a good question. I think 3-point shooting. It definitely slowed down. It was like a little. They were a little ice cold
Yeah.
early on in the first
Mm-hmm.
half, but and they ended up shooting around. I think 7 for 17, which is over a little bit over 40%.
Yeah.
Rick Barnes has had this history. Like I said, Rick Barnes' history is really like something that is like he's not a volatile guy. He's not an unpredictable guy. You want to know what type of team he's
Mm-hmm.
going to build. He's
Yeah.
going to build defenders and 3-point shooters. That's what he wants on the floor. So. I think as his past teams have been, they have to be a really good 3 and D archetype of a team. They
Yeah.
have to be able to defend well, cause turnovers, speed teams up, but they also have to, if we're shooting 23s a game, at least 8 shots needs to be made from behind the arc.
Sure.
And I think that was a really good thing I ended up seeing. Them going I'm pretty sure I wrote it down. They were, yeah, 7 for 17, shooting 41% from 3 point. If they can continue to shoot around that 40% mark, this team have a pretty much a lot of good success. I know that it's Mercer, which like Mercer is not a pushover, and they played a pretty good game, obviously. But if they can make those big shots as they get farther into the tougher non-conference play and SEC play, things will be good. What do you think? What was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the turnovers are a big part of it,
Yeah,
and that's more of a negative. But on the topic of that 3-point shooting, I think that's one of the big question marks of this team moving forward. Who is kind of that secondary shooter on the wing? Now,
yeah,
Jacoby Gillespie obviously is a guy that shot the ball really well at Maryland and has plenty of experience in college basketball. I think he's your best shooter in October right now, or excuse me, not October, November. We're in
yeah.
November now, but as we currently stand in November, I think he's your best shooter, your most consistent one. I think Nate Ament could be that down the line. But again, he's pretty raw right now, needs more experience. My big question is who is that secondary shooter, right? You go after Isaac McNeely in the portal, you go after Rodney Rice in the portal, you miss on both those guys, and you don't really establish that true shooting guard position, a guy that can play alongside Gillespie, space the floor, hit his open shots. I think on Sunday and the Duke scrimmage a couple of weeks back, you saw a little bit from Ethan Berg. You saw a little bit from Amari Abram. You saw the same kind of against Mercer. But I think that's going to be one of the big questions. 7 of 17 is not a bad number. But I feel like if you're going to compete in the SEC, where there are going to be a lot of good 3-point shooting teams and a lot of good offenses, Kentucky, Florida, Alabama, for example, you're going to have to be able to shoot the ball at a high clip. And if you're shooting 7 for 17 against Mercer, again, early in the season, not bad. But I wonder what it looks like up against tougher defenses and tougher competition. I think trying to find that secondary shooter is going to be really key for Gillespie, but also for Ament to take a little bit of the pressure off of him.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to your point on turnovers, the Vols had 19 turnovers to 5 from Mercer, but they did make it up for dominating the boards 54-32. I think that'll be my second like takeaway. How good can this team be at rebounding? Obviously, we got Felix Akpara back, and we also have transferred from my in-state rival, Jalen Carey. He led the
Yeah.
team in rebounds. He had 10. I think he had about 8
Yeah. Eight
let me
points
no,
and
he
game
had,
leading 10
he had
rebounds.
8 points and 10 rebounds, and he had 5 offensive boards and 5 defensive boards. If he's crashing like that, I think this team will see a lot of success. Also, like the freshman phenom, the guy who's supposed to be the scorer and stuff, he's getting in there. I'm pretty sure Barnes just told him, "Hey, we need you to be an aggressive guy. We need you to do all the nasty work too, instead of just scoring." He was second behind Carey with 9. So really, I really want to see how successful this team could be on the boards. And surprisingly, returner Bishop Boswell had 8 rebounds, and he's a guard. So if we're that's I think rebounding right there for him, especially is coming down to effort instead of just being in the right place and jumping hard at everybody. Uh, you can see Barnes is teaching them, hey guys, we gotta crash the glass. We need these rebounds.
Yeah, good point on the rebounding there. The 54 rebounds marked the team's highest total since December 7th, 2022.
Mhm.
And that immediately led to a 44-22 tally in paint points and Also, I thought you got great production on the bench from a couple of those rebounders as well. You got 32-14 advantage in bench points as well. So those things definitely are complementary to being good on the glass. And, we talk about the portal. I talked about missing on Rodney Rice and Isaac McNeely, but a guy you mentioned is Jalen Carey, the transfer from Vanderbilt. And I feel like that was a characteristic of Tennessee's team last year that you were missing because you had a Tobe Awaka the year before. You had a couple of bruisers. Maybe not Josiah, or excuse me, not Josiah, Jonas Adu per se,
Yeah.
but like I look at a Tobe Awaka, right, a guy that could bang around, and even before that, it was the Euros Placevic type players. You didn't really have a guy that could bang around down low. And when Akpara would get in foul trouble, you'd be very thin in terms of your depth and would have to kind of throw in Cade Phillips. And now this year, you get JP Estrella back.
Yep.
Cade Phillips is still on this roster. Felix Akpara, I think, has gotten even more athletic. And I think you saw a little bit of that in the Duke and Mercer game. But then you now add Jalen Carey. Dwayne Brown, the freshman, is really, really impressive too. I think you've got guys now that can bang around down low and add a level of physicality that you've seen from Rick Barnes' teams in years past that were absent in a couple of those games last year in SEC play, very much absent in that Houston game in the Elite Eight. So I like what the board numbers look like, but I also like the physicality that you got from a couple of those players as well. So I think that's going to be a big thing for this Tennessee team moving forward. Another guy you hit on that would be my second takeaway, Nate Ament. Obviously, one of the big time players in college basketball in terms of freshmen. Bleacher Report already put out their early mock draft. He's a top 5 selection right now. And I thought he played well for his first real college basketball game, obviously against Duke. There were a couple of gripes that he was taking too many shots, but I think that's just part of it. I mean, you're going up against a good Duke team, just see what you can do. And I thought he had some good moments. But against Mercer, goes for 19 points and had 9 rebounds, as you mentioned, just one shy of a double double. And your college basketball debut, I'll take that. And he went 6 of 11 from the field. So I think one thing I'm going to watch for him is his continued growth throughout the season. He had a couple of bad turnovers in this one, and that was a characteristic of the team. But can he tighten up his ball handle a little bit? And what does he look like at the end of the season defensively? Dalton Connect, when he came in, wasn't a great defender.
At
But by
all.
the end of the season, in March, he was having, blocks against the backboard. I'd say the same for Chaz Lanier. Wasn't a great defender, wasn't a great rebounder. But by the end of the season, he was a really good rebounder on the glass. So I look for the improvements that Ament makes with this Rick Barnes staff. And I thought he was pretty solid in his debut. I think he'll continue to get better.
Yeah, I definitely that thing just comes with buying into the program. Barnes is not like a Calipari or like a Rick Pitino. Hey, go get your words. Like you got to buy into the program. You got to earn your stripes. One thing I am excited to see, as like you said, he's taking too many shots. I'm glad that Barnes is allowing his top recruit to be his
Yeah.
top recruit. I feel like we've seen in so many years with what's his name, Jordan. No, not Jordan. I'm blanking right now. But like when Rick Barnes has brought in his top recruits, they've played a more regressive role. And even though they were good scorers in high school and they've had the skills and tangibles to do it, Barnes hasn't
Oh,
really allowed them to bloom. And
Julian
I think,
Phillips.
yeah, Julian Phillips, that's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Julian Phillips. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know why I said Jordan. I'm thinking Jordan
No, you're
Day. I don't know
good.
why. But yeah, Julian Phillips, like he had all the tangibles. Oh, we saw this in high school. He did this on the circuit. He was scoring like this. He was scoring like this. But he comes here and he's a bench player. Even BJ Edwards as well. BJ Edwards is a high ranked recruit, high ranked guard. He didn't really come here and play at all. But I'm glad. Obviously, well, Nate is 6'9" with a guard handle and the ability to shoot the three ball. But it's like I'm glad Rick Barnes is allowing him to, hey, this isn't your team, but it's your team. We won't be good if you're not good. We're only going to be as good as you allow us to be. And I'm glad I can see that from the Duke game and even this game, him taking like the most shots. Hey, we need you to take these shots. Hey, we need you to use your size. Bro, you're 6'9". Let's go hoop. Go do your thing. Have
Yeah.
fun out there for sure. I think my takeaway player would definitely be going back to who you said, JP Estrella. One thing I love about him and K Phillips, they show emotion no matter what play they make and who they're playing. And JP has that juice. I think JP is going to be the guy that they need off the bench. Not even just when Felix Akpar and Jalen Carey is in foul trouble, but definitely like, hey, We need them to get some rest. We're finna rotate these bigs so everybody can play their hardest 5 minutes. Come in, do what you need to do. And he did that. He did just that off the bench. Only I think he had like no, not 15 minutes. He had 12 minutes actually. No, 20 minutes. He had 12 points and 5 rebounds. And he's cleaning up on the glass. He's dunking alley oops. Like he's bringing the energy, and I think that's the juice that this team is going to need off the bench for sure.
Well, how about this? Career best in both points and rebounds, tied a career high in rebounds, that is, with five. But this is a guy that missed the final 35 games of the season last year. And he comes out in his first performance, goes 12 and 5 and shoots at a 60% clip, goes 6 for 10. We talk about that depth you have down low and the rebounding game. I think he's a big part of that. I think that's going to be one of the best aspects of this team, at least early on, that you've got about five guys you can go to
Yeah,
in the front, excuse me, in the back court where, or front court, I should say. But you've got Dwayne Brown, you've got Jalen Carey, you've got Felix Okpara, Cade Phillips, JP Estrella. Those are five valuable players
for sure.
in the SEC, especially when the whistle gets a little bit tighter. You've got guys to come in and out, and I think Estrella could easily get back into the starting lineup, full time, and maybe play alongside Okpara, go kind of like a double big lineup because again you don't have the perimeter shooting as you've had in years past, right? So you're going to have to find a way to navigate what you currently have and try to find the advantage that your roster can present against an opposing team. So I look for him to maybe get into the starting lineup if you're not able to establish a good shooting starting lineup. But again, he's a guy that I missed last season, and you missed with the depth. Now you've got even more depth, and he comes out and has a really, really good game. Um, I'd say the final thing for me would be the defensive effort. And we know that's what Rick Barnes teams love to do. They love the defense. And look, I get it. It's Mercer, but Mercer's a team that will be competitive in their conference. And we've seen them make the tournament multiple times in the last, 10 or 12 years. So they're going to be a competitive team. And defensively, you hold them to a 20% ledger from behind the arc. They shoot 6 of 29 and they logged just a 29.9% clip from the field, 20 for 67. And that's despite them hitting 8 of their last 15 shots. And I thought the thing that was interesting as compared to prior Tennessee teams, and maybe this is just one game, but usually Tennessee has done a great job in turning you over.
Yeah.
Mercer only had 5 turnovers in this one. I thought the shot contest and the rotations and forcing Mercer into tough possessions was really, really key here. The numbers in terms of the turnovers might not back that up, but I thought you got a lot of great shot contest and put Mercer in a tough situation. So we'll see if that's a characteristic that continues throughout the season. But at least early on, you had a really impressive defensive performance, and you didn't even necessarily cause a ton of steals and get a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, I like that. You moved on into what I wanted to talk about next is like what does this game tell us about what this team is going to look
Yeah.
like? And one of my points I wrote down was saying, hey, the defensive identity must stay. Like it must be there. We may not have Zakai Ziegler, we may not have Meshack, we may not have the reigning defensive player of the year and the award-winning defender, the Swiss Army knife. Yeah, that area is over, but who is going to step up? Transfers. We need you to step up, Jacoby. You got to be a leader on defense. Not only offense, but you have to be a leader on defense. These freshmen, you have to buy in, move your feet. Hey, Nate, well, you are here to score, but you are here to play defense. That's my identity. That's what this team. That's what Tennessee Volunteer basketball looks like. You got to stay. I think another thing I wrote down is the bench and rotation depth does matter. Like you said, this team strength can be, hey, we got 5 guys that can be in the front court and can give their all for the 5 minutes and bang with you and make life tough for you in the paint. Hey, we can do that. I think another thing that I like that Barnes hasn't normally did, especially in the past couple of years, was maybe, and it was because it was a Mercer game, less
Mm-hmm.
like and less stakes, but he played a lot of his guys. I think there were, let me see how many players touched the floor.
Let's see. You got your 5 and then 2,
13.
7. Yeah.
13 players touch the floor. And
Mm-hmm.
Rick Barnes is really an 8-man, 9-man guy. I'm gonna bring not
Yeah.
even eight really. I'm gonna bring my best players that are gonna give me the best chance to win. That was something that I definitely wrote down. I was like, hey, I mean, these guys are playing. Like you said, Ethan Birdie's playing. Hey, oh, this the freshman's playing. Amari Abrams playing. Oh, like we got a lot of guys playing. So I wonder, is this the first game? Like I'm just feeling out, still experimenting. Like I said, Barnes has done in the past, or is it like, hey, I'm going to so these guys can give me their all and not get gassed or burned out. I'm going to be rotating these guys the way I need to be.
Yeah, I think last year the rotations were pretty small because you just didn't have that many guys to go to, and that was due to
Yeah.
injury. That was also due to a guy in Cam Carr getting up and leaving, kind of midway through the season. Maybe not midway, but early in the year, and then you also had so many injuries. So I feel like this year he's a little bit relieved that he can go to 13 guys in a game, and obviously again it's Mercer, and we'll probably see a shrunk rotation against like Houston, but I think getting as many guys as involved as possible early in the season is really key because you're trying to figure out about these guys right now.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out about a Troy Henderson. You're trying to figure out about an Amari Abram, Dwayne Brown, Amari Evans. And some of those guys got more minutes than others, but you're trying to figure out where you fit with some of these new players. And I don't know how big you are on the plus minus, but I also look at that in a game like this, who, when they were on the court, who was the most effective.
Yeah.
And I'm not a Bishop Boswell guy. I will admit, I don't think,
Me neither,
yeah,
man.
I don't think he's a guy that fits in 2025 basketball. I just think he's limited from the perimeter. But he had a plus 15 in this one. He was the best Tennessee player in that statistical category. He goes 1 of 2 from the 3-point line, but he had 8 rebounds. So it's like, he is making an impact in some way. I think he shrinks the court. And when you've already
Yeah.
got a limited amount of shooters, it's tough to throw him out there. A guy I really want to see, and you talk about that depth, and that's why I wanted to bring this up. Troy Henderson. He's a freshman. He's undersized. He went 2 of 3 from the 3-point line on Monday night and ended up with 6 points, had 2 assists as well. I think he's a guy that could possibly be your backup point guard when you enter into SEC play. And I know right now that might seem a little bit ridiculous to say, as you've got a couple of guys with more experience on this roster. But I think Henderson is the prototypical Rick Barnes guy. Really solid defensively, even despite his size. A guy that I think has a high basketball IQ, and coming from the summer and practice in the fall, he was a guy I heard a lot about. I mean, Nate Ament obviously is going to be the talk of the town. Jacoby Gillespie was a guy everyone bragged about, but they said, watch out for this guy, Troy Henderson. Watch out for this guy, Troy Henderson, because he kind of went through the cracks of all the other guys coming in. But I look for him to maybe get some more opportunities in non-conference play and, maybe kind of solidify a little bit of a question mark right now, as there are a couple of them on this team. What other question marks do you have, or do you kind of see the same thing I'm saying here, where I think that backup point guard role is a question. I think shooting's a question. Is there anything else that you have a question about, or do you want to hit on any of those?
I think the thing I'm questioning is how quickly can this team gel before like the high stakes non-conference and SEC games start? Because like I said, obviously every Vol fan is like, wow, Rick Barnes' ace is going, Zakai Ziegler is going, Rick Barnes' Swiss Army knife, Jemai Meshack is going. Yes, he's brought in Duncan Ned, Chaz and there, but the central idea of who his team, the ideology of his identity of his team has been Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Meshack. So now that they are going, which really is a really whole new roster. Yes, we have returns,
Yeah.
but this is a whole new roster, whole new identity. How quickly can his team find their identity, and how quickly can his team be successful in said identity? I think that's the biggest question mark for me, and I think the chemistry and gelling of this team is really going to give the season's outlook. So speaking of outlook, from this first game, I don't know if you're a big predictions guy,
Sure.
but off of what you say, obviously you can include the exhibition or whatever. What does this team's floor look like to you?
The floor. Well, I think that this is still going to be a team that is top 6 in the SEC. I
Okay.
just think with Rick Barnes, he has proven that he's going to be able to put together a group that's still going to compete towards the top. Um, so I'd say, so we'll do this. So on the ground level, I think
Yeah.
this is going to be a top six team in the SEC. Now the floor, this is going to be a competitive conference. So it's going to be coming down to one or two games. How does that shake out? I don't know at this time. There are a lot of different teams that I've
Yeah.
still got to take a look at. I mean, Florida, takes on an Arizona team in that opening game on Tuesday night or Monday night, but yeah, Monday night might have been whatever it was. But like they had guys like Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee, two really highly recruited portal players, and both those guys struggled. But I don't anticipate that for the rest of the season. Again,
Yeah.
I've got to see what a couple of these teams look like. But I think at the absolute floor, this is going to be a top 8 SEC team in the standings because
Okay.
one or two games could differentiate that. And I think that gets you a reasonable seed in the tournament. And I feel like this will be at least a team that wins one or two games and plays in the second weekend because I just think Rick Barnes has now proven to you that he can have some inconsistencies with this team. I thought you had that in 2022 where the lack of shooting was highlighted and you'd have to kind of go through Jonas Adu and Nakamwa and Josiah Jordan James. Like that was an inconsistent team, but they were so good defensively, they were able to make their way, all the way to the Sweet 16. So I think that's a reasonable floor for this team right now. Um, do you want to give yours before I give my ceiling?
Um, I think my floor is just slightly a little bit higher than yours because obviously, like, I'm a Rick Barnes fan. I feel like
Yeah.
he's best coaches in the country. So top 8 is a little low, but I respect it, obviously. I say this team is a top 5 team in the SEC. Even if the offense is a struggle and something that nobody really knows what it's going to look like, I think the fact that Tennessee has been top 3 according to Kim Pom, who ranks like efficiency and ratings and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, has been top 3 in defense for 4 to 5 years in a row. And I think if that can continue, that will carry them past a lot of like offensive sluggish games. So I think top 5 team in the SEC with a round of 32 appearance would be my floor.
Okay. So yeah, so I've got you beat on the tournament. You've got me
Yeah,
beat in the standings. And
yeah,
again, it's not necessarily that I think like this is going to be a bottom 18 or an
yeah.
eighth place team. It's just like as we saw last year, this conference came down to like one or two
It is,
games,
yeah,
and
definitely.
it's just going to be tight. I feel like it's going to be that way this year as well. Um, but I try not to be overconfident or be a homer, right? I try to
Yeah,
I try to be real with my expectations. But you said the floor, so I feel like that's the floor. I feel like a lot of teams in the country would take that, or at least a lot of teams in the SEC would take that as an
yeah.
absolute floor. In terms of my ceiling, I think this is going to be a, top two or three team in the conference. They're going to compete for that. Now, I don't want to say this is the best team because obviously, again, we've got to watch a lot of these other groups play. But I think it's fair to say at the ceiling, this is a top three team in the conference. That will probably be a one or two seed in the NCAA tournament. As last
Hmm.
year, the top three teams in the conference were all number one seeds. And that just again shows the competitiveness of this conference now. And then a ceiling, I think if Nate Ament can turn into the type of player that many people think he can, I feel like in March, he'll be playing the best basketball of his career. He'll be much more refined. And that's a group and that's a guy with the cast around him, especially defensively. If him and Gillespie are able to take over a game for, 3 to 4 or 5 games in a row, that's a group that can get you to the Final Four. I don't think at the moment this is a Final Four team, but I feel like as this season goes on and they continue to grow and progress like prior Rick Barnes teams have, I feel like this could be a Final Four level group. And really, it's all about the draw once you get into the tournament. It's all about who you play, who you match up against. And I feel like that physicality now that you have down low will definitely help against some of the inconsistencies you had in last season. Your ceiling for this team.
I think my ceiling definitely in SEC standings will be top 3 for sure. I think we've had some drop offs like Bruce Pearl is gone in Auburn, so that team looks a lot different. I think they struggled like their first game, like they went to overtime their first game. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a first game jitters type of thing, but I don't think that team will be as powerful and as potent as they have been in recent years. I obviously think Florida will be up there, Kentucky will be up there. But I definitely think this ceiling can be like top 3 because usually that top five and all the country is usually top three SEC teams in the
Yeah.
first place, just because of how good and how tough this conference is. So I think that's a ceiling as far as SEC standings go. Now tournament, man, I don't know. Like, of course, the homer in me, like, yeah, this team could definitely go to the Final Four. But I honestly think at best this team will crack an Elite Eight appearance.
Okay.
I think every year Rick Barnes has had this, hey, we have a team that can go to the Final Four, that can go dance in those last two games. But if obviously running into a bad matchup with Dawkins, yeah, we don't have anybody that can bang with Edie.
Yeah.
And then last year, like just losing to Houston the way we lost there was like a manslaughter. It was just like they were more aggressive than we were. Just understand. I feel like out of the last 3 years, obviously it's the first game, and this may be a hot take. I think this is, and by worst, I don't mean like this roster stinks, but like I think this is the worst roster Rick Barnes has had in the last 3 years, if that makes sense. Now, maybe that'd be because hey, Zakai's not here, Jemai Meshak's not here, but I definitely think they're going to fill that vacancy for sure. Like even if all the guys buy into the program, hey, we're going to play defense, we're going to put pressure on these guys. We're going to miss that defensive hole. We got a guy that can go guard the best player and shut him down or give them hell on that given night. So I would say ceiling top three in the SEC, but an Elite Eight appearance is definitely possible for this team for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think, your point's completely fair. I think that I would probably agree. Like out of the last three teams, including this year, I liked what we had or what Tennessee had in 2023 and in 2024 last year. I feel like this one, you just have more unknowns. And maybe at
Yeah,
the end of the season,
yeah,
we're saying, man, I can't believe we were saying this about Ethan Berg, or I
yeah,
can't believe we were saying this about Amari Abram. But like at the moment, with all the new players, you just don't have that kind of grasp as you did heading into the season last year or the year before that. Like last year, it was okay. We got Zakai, we got Jemai. This Felix Akpara guy is going to be pretty good. We feel like Jordan Gainey is going to be a really valuable player. Like you knew guys were going to fill their role and what would live up to expectations. Chaz Lanier ended up being as good as advertised. I think if there were a player at this point last season that kind of underwhelmed, it was a Igor Milicic, who I thought was just really inconsistent. I thought he was a good player, but wasn't to the level that I had expected, where he'd kind of be this modern day four that could stretch the floor and do a lot of different things. You saw flashes of it, but it was never consistent. And then Darlin Stone Dubar ended up being a guy that never really cracked the rotation
yeah,
consistently. So, like, I felt like you had more insurance last year, but there were those question marks. I think you got one out of three question marks last year that ended up working out. Chaz Lanier obviously was a SEC Player of the Year candidate. He really worked out, but Dubar and Milicic were inconsistent. With this year's roster, you have a lot of question marks. Who's going to boom? And I think, again, that goes back to figuring out the shooting. That goes back to figuring out who's going to play the two guard and that starting lineup consistently. I think those are the question marks you have to think about right now. And I think ultimately that is what will dictate how far this team can go. But I feel like there are a lot of teams in the country doing this conversation right now, Jeremiah. I feel like there are a lot of teams trying to figure out, well,
where
we
we're gonna
really
look.
we did well in the portal. Does that mean
Yeah.
we do well in the games? But it doesn't always work like that.
Yeah. So I want to continue this kind of like question mark prediction type of thing because I think we're giving good conversation back and forth. So here are three categories. We're gonna break it down. First of which, what is a key stat that you think will make or break this season?
3-point shooting, 3-point
Mm,
percentage. I mean, I think you know what you're going to have defensively because Rick Barnes teams do that. But the 3-point shooting has always been kind of the Achilles heel for these teams. It wasn't as much so with Dalton Connect because that was a guy that was a
yeah.
first round NBA draft pick. Wasn't that big of an issue last year with Chaz Lanier kind of being the forefront of that, Jordan Gainey as well. But again, in that Houston game, you couldn't throw a rock in an ocean. And that's, ultimately what ended up losing you that game and ending that season. But I think for this year, again, we talk about these question marks. Who's going to be that 3-point shooter? I know Jacoby Gillespie is. But
Yeah.
I feel like you might get put in the situation where you have to put Gillespie at the 2 just to have your best shooter get open looks off ball. And that's not something that I necessarily want to see happen. I think it could happen, and they ran it a couple of times this offseason. Troy Henderson was a guard, a point guard, and sets with Gillespie at the 2. Nate Ament even ran point guard a couple of times. I think you're just going to have to see if you're going to have a player be that consistent shooter, because it would have been Isaac McNeely or Rodney Rice. Obviously, we can't live in a fantasy world and wish those guys were still here. But that's a big part of this roster that I think is missing right now. So 3-point shooting would be my answer. What about you?
I say turnovers, man. I mean, Rick Barnes hasn't Rick Barnes' team hasn't just been just like a team that turns over the ball as much. But 19-5, when you say, oh, who won a turnover battle, you would think Tennessee forced Mercer to commit 19 turnovers, but instead
Yeah,
it was the
yeah.
other way around. So I think that is a huge problem that needs to get fixed as soon as possible. All five of your starters can't have two or more turnovers, and your point guard especially can't have four your leading turnovers. So hopefully, I'm pretty sure, Boyne's probably grilled them about it for sure. Like, hey guys, we have to take care of the ball. We're not going to win any games not taking care of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely reducing and winning the turnover battle on any given night. Because when, like you said, when we go against Houston in a couple of weeks or a couple of days, Houston has already, just like us, they've been ranked top three in defensive rating and defensive efficiency. So
Yeah.
obviously they're going to play 94 feet. Obviously they're going to play really hard and force turnovers and rotate early and do great shot contests. So how can we settle down and still, hey, we have to take care of the ball, meet passes. Hey, let's not throw this pass with one hand. Let's throw this pass with two hands. Hey, let's pass fake. Like moving guys out the way so we won't commit turnovers. 19 turnovers is something that does not look good. Is a huge red flag, but obviously it can be cleaned up because it may be first game jitters. But I definitely think that will make or break this season, depending on how much can Tennessee take care of the basketball. Next question: who is your predicted MVP of the season?
Well, this is kind of a layup here. I mean, I think that they're two guys. They're two guys,
Mhm.
I feel like.
Mhm.
So whichever one you don't want to take, I'll take the other.
You can just take it. I
Okay.
don't know what you're gonna say, so you
Well,
can just
look,
take it.
I said it earlier, right? If Tennessee is going to be a Final Four team, if Tennessee is going to be a top tier team in the SEC, the
Mhm.
projected lottery pick has got to be your best player.
Okay.
The thing about Nate Ament's recruitment that was so astonishing to me, obviously he was, really tight with a lot of the Duke guys and looked like he was going to go there. Now they have a loaded roster already. You could say, well, he didn't want to go there and have to, share the ball with a lot of other
Yeah.
players. But Duke is also the standard of college basketball. Every young 5-star player wants to go play there. And they did a hell of a job recruiting him. There were a ton of guys involved with that. But Rick Barnes, after he missed on McNeely and Rice, he basically, told the staff, told the people that help out in getting these guys to Knoxville, said, I want this guy. I'm not going to be here for much longer. We're going to do whatever it takes. And you had Kevin Durant call Nate Ament up. You had Grant Williams. You had a lot of former volunteers and guys that have been connected with this program calling Ament up and saying, you need to go play for Rick Barnes. This is a guy that's going to develop you and make you into a star. And I've never really seen Barnes get head over heels for a guy like this, especially a high school player. Like
Yeah.
over the last couple of years, like the focal point of the team has either
Definitely.
been a transfer with plenty of experience or a guy that has already been on this roster for multiple years. Putting your trust in an 18-year-old is a
Yeah.
big risk to take. But Barnes sees what many people that are covering the NBA draft see. This guy could be a star. So Barnes identified his guy. He did whatever it took financially and in terms of connections to go get him.
Yeah.
And I feel like he has to be your MVP of this team. He reminds me of, he's very similar to Kevin Durant. I know that's the easy comp, but going back to his high school tape last year, I thought his ability to get to his spots and be able to, establish a really good pull up jumper and his ball handling continued to improve, his defense improved. If he's able to do that at the college level, then this is going to be a top three player in the draft. This is going to be one of the best players in the country. I think you have to have that for this Tennessee team to be able to reach the heights that they want to. So I know it's an easy answer, but I'm going to go MVP for Nate Ament.
And of course, I'm going to take the other guy. I think I would have took the other guy regardless if you would take Nate or not. I
Yeah.
think Jacoby Gillespie is this year's MVP. And this is what I think. So obviously the whole I keep going back to this, but it's definitely like something that's huge and that's something that Vol fans and college hoops fans are keeping up with. What will this team look like without Zakai Ziegler? What will this team look like without their reigning SEC Defensive Player of the Year and their point guard that Barnes has trusted so many years in a row? Yeah, he's not here to fill the shoes of Zakai, but he really is. What can Jacoby do this year where guys like, oh yeah, Barnes made the right choice for going and get that guy. Barnes elevated his game. Jacoby bought in so much into the program. Hey, he went to go get drafted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think Jacoby will definitely be this year's MVP because obviously, like you said, right now in November, he's the team's best shooter. We've seen that. Right now in November, he's the team's best penetrator as well. He can get to the rim. He float. I never really see Jacoby lay the ball up, but one thing he has a nice touch around the rim when it comes to floaters and stuff like that. And we've seen that in both games. Definitely the Duke game for sure. But can Gillespie elevate his game and lead this team the way Rick Barnes expects? And if he does, I think they have a good chance of being the Tennessee team that's lingering around the top five, top 10 teams in the
Yeah.
country all season.
Yeah. One thing on Gillespie that I'll add, because obviously he's an easy answer for MVP as well, because I think he'll be a really, really good player for this team. He led Maryland to a very successful
Yeah.
season last year. I called him the Crab Five. They were fun as can be to watch, but he was a really good facilitator. He's already been a guy that has had to lead a team in a lot of different aspects. Obviously, as a scorer and a driver, as you mentioned, I think that's a really underrated part of his game. But just a team leader, a ball handler, a guy that gets into your sets. That's really important for Tennessee's
Yeah.
offense. But in tournament time, I feel like guard play wins a lot of these games. Who's got the
Yeah.
better point guard? Who's more disciplined? Stuff like that. And having a guy with that experience, I think, is really big. I know we haven't talked to Gillespie a ton because we've been hitting on a lot of other players, but I'm glad you gave him his due diligence because he is going to be a really good player. I love that he's from Tennessee as well. He's a Greenville, Tennessee native, so he's already got some Tennessee ties heading into the season here. Began his career at Belmont. I think he's going to be a home run hit for this team and very well could be an all conference player. And I think he'll be a really good star for this team.
Okay. Not MVP, but who is this team's make or break player?
Make or break. That's a good question too, because that is kind of the question I've been talking about, right? Who's going to be that backup? Who's going to be that number two?
Hmm.
I feel like you've got enough stability down low. So I don't feel like a player down there is going to dictate it because I
Yeah.
think you've got 4 or 5 guys you could go to. I don't want to say Troy Henderson because he's a freshman and he might not end up panning out. I honestly go Ethan Berg or Amari Abram here
Okay.
because Berg's got the experience. He's an older player. Abram, this is his fourth school in 4 years, and welcome to 2025, folks. But I feel like either of those guys could be that shooter. I go more Abram here because Abram's game is more offensive oriented when he was at Louisiana Tech, when he was at Ole Miss and Georgia Tech. Like that's what he did. So I feel like if there's going to be that player that turns into that third option offensively, it's going
Hmm.
to be Amari Abram. And he sticks out too because he dresses up like he's playing for the
Yeah.
Globetrotters. So for those listening, you'll see him when he checks into the game. You know who it is. But I feel like he's the make or break player and could very well dictate the ceiling of this team.
I like Amari because I think Rick Barnes got him because he's that off the ball but can dribble, can handle the ball type of player that'll probably not fill the shoes of Jemai Masek, but hey, we need you to go guard this guy, give him hell for however many minutes we play you tonight. And I definitely think he'll work into getting more minutes as the season progresses. As he because Rick Barnes, I'm pretty sure Rick Barnes is a big practice guy. Hey, you got to buy into the program here before I can trust you out there. So I definitely think as he does more and shows, but hey, I'm going to give my all. I'm going to die for that loose ball, or I'm going to go play super hard on defense for sure. He'll find more minutes. Now, my make or break player may not be conventional, but I think it's Nate Ament. I mean, top five recruit, top five projected draft pick compared to Kevin Durant. How can you fill those expectations that are being set for you? You're a 6'10 versatile forward with a guard handle. They say you can shoot the ball. We've seen you make plays, create your own shot. He's done a lot of back to the basket when he gets a mismatch and doing like fadeaways and stuff like that. How consistent can you be when you go against tougher, more physical teams?
Mm-hmm.
How much can you use your frame? Yes, you're an 18-year-old. Like I said, I'm glad to see Rick Barnes is investing in his 18-year-old. Yes, he's seeing what we see. Hey, that guy gave AJ the 20 points when they went head to head in high school. He can do. He's just as good as him. Hey, he had a surge his senior year that somehow he was ranked the first player for a little while before he got
Yeah.
ranked.
Yeah.
Hey, this guy is a really good ball player. And even hear him talk to like Mike Keith and stuff like that, he's really mature as well. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have the voice and the like optics and the way he sees things as an 18-year-old. How can his game translate from high school to college? And if it
Mm-hmm.
really does translate and he becomes as good of a player and as dangerous of a player as we see and how Rick Barnes probably thinks, man, this team would be crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and that's a good answer too, because again, as I talk about with the MVP, like he has to be that, but we don't know if he will be that. So
Yeah.
that is right in line with that make or break player. And this is going to be a really good draft class. Obviously, we saw Boozer firsthand the other night.
Yeah, he's
Debansa,
nasty. He's nasty.
yeah, and watching Debansa the other night for BYU, like there is some players that you can just tell that guy's going to get it. I feel like already we've seen that Ament's a guy that's going to get it.
Hmm.
Like some guys come in just really raw and they just look a little bit overwhelmed. Like Ament in that Duke game, I know the field goal percentages weren't there, but he looked like a part of it. He looked very comfortable. I mean, that one baseline dunk he had, like
Oh
that's
yeah.
not a guy that
Yeah.
Tennessee's had in years past. I
Yeah.
mean, that type of stuff I feel like will continue to progress. And then I was really impressive too with some of his fadeaway shots
Yeah.
along the baseline at that frame at 6'10". It's going to be very
He's
difficult
comfortable.
for, yeah,
Yeah.
going to be difficult for a lot of these guys to defend him. So I look for that, kind of getting him on the block, just get him in the basketball, similar to Durant, and say, go make a play. And I feel like if he's able to refine that game over the course of the season, I mean, a game on the line, you need a shot, one possession game, 2 point game. Hey, aim it. Let's go get a play and isolate. And if they decide to trap, hit a guy in the corner, you can work off of it. But I feel like him being a make or break guy is still a very fair assessment, even though he's an MVP level player for this team as well.
Yeah, for sure. So we got more non-conference games coming up. What should we be watching that we'll talk about in future pods, of course. What should we be watching from this team? What are you expecting to see?
Yeah, well, I think at least over these next couple of games, you got Northern Kentucky. That's on a Saturday, November 8th at 3 o'clock. And then next Wednesday, you'll play North Florida, Chaz Lanier's old team. So a
Yeah,
little nice wrinkle there. And then you'll have Rice and Tennessee State in two kind of tune up matches before you head to Las Vegas, take on Rutgers and Houston. And then you kind of play through the way of that tournament. But um, I feel like what we will be talking about here next time we come on after this Northern Kentucky game, that they cleaned up the turnovers and that
yeah,
things got cleaned up. If you're going to go into Las Vegas and play a Rutgers team that I think is, I don't know, Rutgers is okay. I thought they really mishandled last year with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. That's a conversation for a different time. But that Houston game is going to be welcome to the big leagues.
for
So you've
sure.
got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games until you play Houston. This is your opportunity to clean things up. So 19 turnovers is going to be unacceptable against a team like Houston. And if you did 19 against Mercer, might as well make it 38 against Houston.
Nah, for real.
so
Yeah,
so I feel like the big thing Tennessee's got to improve on is just cleanliness, knocking off the rust, and being a little bit more efficient, getting into their sets and shooting the ball offensively. So just play cleaner is what I'm looking for. What about you?
yeah. Maybe mine is similar along the lines, but as I said earlier, Tennessee has had this problem of playing down to the competition and starting off slow. How does one, either Tennessee start off firing and with good and playing to their potential, or how do they respond to adversity? Like you said, are we going to stop turning the ball over? Are we going to make better rotations? Are we going to shoot better shots? Are we going to knock down our three pointers? Are we? But first, I would like to see, hey, let's start fast. Hey, let these first 5 minutes shock this team, so this team be like, hey, we got to catch up. We got to be out of breath. We got to play faster than we want to. Because when Tennessee is missing or when Tennessee is turning the ball over, the opposing team is going to be pretty lax. There's no reason to really panic because, hey, this team is not showing us, hey, we're dangerous. I want this team to come out and be like, hey, we're dangerous. We can compete. Like you said, we can compete in the big leagues. Houston, we won't have anything to worry about. We'll see you in 5 or 6 games. We'll be warmed up. We played 5 games in a row where we started really good in the first 10 minutes. Yeah, basketball is a game of runs, of course. However, but if those first 5 to 10 minutes in that first half, if Tennessee looks like a dangerous team, the things will line up. Things will happen. Teams will be scared of them. So I think that's probably what I would be looking for. Hey, how good will this team start in those first 5 to 10 minutes in the first half for sure?
Yeah, I mean that's a big point in any sport, right? You want to get off to the hot start. You want to look efficient. You don't want to get behind the chains in football. You don't want to get behind on the scoreboard in basketball. So, um, big opportunity. I know these are Northern Kentucky's and North Florida's. It's not very exciting, but again, it's important for a team that's so new with a ton of new characters on this team, trying to find that chemistry, and hopefully here on Sunday or Monday, whenever we record next, we're talking about, hey, I know it's Northern Kentucky, but Tennessee looked a lot more clean in this one. And hopefully that is a trend that continues up until you travel to Las Vegas.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like you said, Tennessee plays Saturday at home, I think, versus Northern Kentucky. We're gonna see if the things that we talk about will get better, what this team will be in their second game of the season. I'm Jeremiah again. Here's Will, my new co-host, man. Good episode from you, Will. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it. Happy to do this all season long. We'll continue to carry these storylines from today into the rest of the season. And, hopefully we have the opportunity to do this thing until April. That'd be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would definitely be fun. This team goes to March and Final Four, like Will says, see who's right in their predictions. But yeah, I'm Jeremiah again. Here's